Hello, this is Danny Cruz, PinchTune, and this is the last video in the series for the NewBeeDrone FLYBY. This will be part 3. I'll encourage you to watch the other video so you know what this is about. The link will be in the description. Also, I'm sorry if I repeat myself on a couple things. I shot this video over the course of a couple months, so there's a couple things that I know will overlap. But the point is, this is the last installment. The frame has been built, tuned, I've been flying it, and I have a lot more feedback to give you about it. I just wanted to make sure this is complete so you can have a pretty good idea of what this frame is all about. If I missed anything, do watch the other videos in the series so that basically you get the whole story. Now, just to give you an idea of the build, the motors are Hyperlight 2205 1722 kV for 6S. It has Emacs Magnum F4, not the flight controller, but the ESC that comes with that stack, with a CL Racing, now the Talon S4. It has a Talon F4 by Heli Nation in there, which is essentially very similar to the CL Racing board. And then it has a Runcam Micro Swift 2 in black, and it's running a full-size TBS Unify VTX, the race version of it. A couple things we have to point out here. First of all, the build is very light. I'm very impressed with the weight. So we're going to start with that because I discovered when I finished the build that it was actually lighter with a 6S battery than my previous 4S build. So if we take this and we set up the scale, oh, hold on, I have to put the tray on it so I can zero it out. So if we do that and we put this guy on top, and so dry, it's 274 grams. When we add the 6S battery, which is an R-Line 1050 6S, we put that on top, and we put a strap, because they'll need a strap, of course. We're talking about 447 grams all up. This is about 30, I believe, grams lighter than my previous 4S build, which is an X-Hover Win 5 with a thick 6mm arms. Okay, so that's the weight, which I am very pleased about because I don't like heavy quads. That's why I fly so many 4-inch quads. I love the lightweight. I'm running the 5149 gem fan props. I really like this. Is my favorite racing prop at the moment, so I'm trying to put it on everything that I can. And now that the build is complete, there's a couple things that I did. First of all, before we continue with this, the specs on this build are not exactly how I originally mentioned they would be in the first videos, because at one point I made a mistake and I burnt the other FC. I'll tell you more about that in a second. So what I'll do is I want to show you the innards of what's inside, and it'll give you a little bit of the story about what happened to the other FC. And since it's all buttoned up and closed and you can't really see inside, I want to show you another video so you can see exactly what's in there and how it fits. Alright, so let's go to that one now. I want to show you how this is looking before I go and put everything together, because it's of course a lot easier to see now that it's all open. Let's start by the fact that, well, let's start by showing you the Emacs Esc. This is the Emacs 6S Esc. It's turned around by, actually this way, just by 90 degrees. So normally these are on the side, so I turn them this way. This also means that the motor order changes. Of course you can change the motor order in Betaflight, but I like to do it physically if I can, because otherwise every time I upgrade Betaflight I have to remember, oh, I gotta change the motor order. So if I can do it here in the wiring, I'd rather do that. So what I did is I created a file that says, like, see, motor 1 goes into motor 2, motor 2 goes into motor 4, and that way I just know the order is supposed to be, and I use a diagram here. But to give you a little bit of backstory, I originally built it with the CL Racing F4 Mini that I have here, but like anyone else in the hobby, we make mistakes, and what happens here, the diagram with the Emacs Esc is actually upside down. The way it reads is like this. The plug is on top but on the bottom of it. So with it flipped over, there's a current sensor, that's the way it reads. For some reason, when I was building it originally, I read it as if it were like this, the plug like that. So I had my wires inverted. When I plugged this thing in, basically it was feeding power from the ESC into one of the motor signal connectors, and I burnt the FC. So that was like 2 weeks ago, and I've been so busy. I ordered another one, and I've been so busy I haven't had time to put this together. This was supposed to be done 2 weeks ago. But while I was at it, I ordered another one of these. I'm going to use it anyway, but as you can see, the front of it hit those capacitors. Now, there will be more options of 20 by 26 S caps, ESCs in the future. The Acon one is coming soon, but this one fits really well. Just there's not a whole lot of options right now. The Ori 32 is the other one. So likely some of the other ones won't have the same issue, but as you can see, it's kind of tight in there, so you gotta make sure it fits. But this one is perfect for this frame, but you do have to turn it around. Now this CL Racing F4 Mini touches them, so what I did was actually bend them forward a little bit, tilted them forward, and it was fine. But when I had to order a new one because this one's dead, since I killed it, I decided, since I've used this one before, this is a Talon F4 by Heli Nation. Now this is essentially the same, well, very similar board. They're both made by the same guy, and they're very similar. The only difference is this one's a little bit shorter, see, and also it has a plug in the back instead of having pads, which also makes it smaller, and it's missing, I believe, 1 UART compared to this one. I have 1 extra UART here, which is nice because I don't have to run any wires underneath. Unfortunately, on this one, in order to do crossfire and half telemetry, I have to run 1 signal wire here, and then I believe this is RX, so it's the one that sends and receives here. So channel 1 on crossfire, and then channel 2 that receives over here is on that side. So if I run the crossfire receiver at either end, I have to run 1 wire underneath, which kind of sucks, but it is a very good board. I run it on other frames, and I decided to replace it with this one instead of that one, not because of the plug, because I don't mind soldering it, but simply because even when I put the gummies, see, it doesn't hit the capacitors. So as far as I'm concerned, at the moment, this one fits the frame way better. As you can see, then I'll just run this plug down here and plug it in there. Run the camera wires, I'll take them off of here, put them on there, and then the VTX connector, I'll run it under there as well. So I just have to do this now. Now, this thing will go at the back under here, like so. This is going to be tied there to the little bar for stress relief, right? And then, you know, the thing is that this frame is so compact, but somehow everything fits. If you give it, I have to give it a lot of thought, really, but everything fits. Look at this. So there is a full-size TBS Unify HV VTX. And the nice thing is stuck right to that carbon plate, so it helps with heat transmission. So it helps reduce heat. And then this will go just right through here. And there it is. So everything, it's a tight frame, but if you really give it a lot of thought, or just copy me, I guess, everything just fits. Now, the way I built it, I'm building it with a top mount battery on top of here, where some of the other guys have built it upside down with the battery on the other side, and it flipped over. And then I know Chris at NewBeeDrone has it with the battery here, but this way up. So battery on the bottom with this being up. One thing I definitely did here was I added race wire, but I put them at the bottom with the LEDs. And because of the angle the motor wires come out, which is out of the side instead of over here, because of the way, usually these are in an X pattern, so you usually have 1, 2, 3, 4. These are turned about 45 degrees, so because of this, the wires come out the side, which can suck. I kind of don't like it, but that's if I want to run the wires on the top. But given that I'm running the wires on the bottom, it actually routes the wires nicely around it. So I like that. So there you have it, and then they go back up into the ESC. couple of the things I did was I looked up hardware, M2 hardware, because the holes here are actually M3. So I used antenna tubing to fill them in, and M2 because Emacs Esc is just an M2. So I looked for M2 hardware that is a button head, because if I ever want to run a GoPro, for example, and I decide, you know what, I'll put the GoPro up here with a TPU mount, then I got to run the battery in the bottom, and having the other screw types, which I don't know where they are, but they the socket heads, they're kind of tall and they can poke into the battery, so you got to put a lot of foam to protect them. But with these button heads, I avoid that problem altogether. Alright, so now that we are back from watching that and we're back to the fully built quad, I'll tell you a little bit more about it, and then we'll also get into the flight footage. A couple things. The battery. It's a small 6S, and that was on purpose just to keep the weight down. Being 2205 motors, they are pretty efficient compared to some guys that are running 2207, and they can't get away with running anything lower than a 1300. The battery goes on top like so. It has UMA grip there to help it with not moving. And then because there's no space in the stack, I have to run the battery strap around the entire thing like this, which is fine. Right? And then in the back, this gets tucked in there probably with a rubber band, and then I plug it right here in the back. So I put a lot of thought into this setup and the way I wanted it to be, to keep the wires out of the props, keep everything nice and tidy, and still do a top mount. The other reason, and I might have mentioned this in the other videos, that I put the build with the cage on top and this on top, as opposed to how some guys are doing it with like this with the motors on top, is so that I can also run a GoPro, because eventually we will have a GoPro mount, and that means I can just put a thinner pad there, stick the battery on the bottom, and then strap a GoPro to the very top. And I don't have to do anything else. If I were running it the upside down or inverted, then I'll have to do more modifications in order to run a GoPro. At the moment, all I have to do is just put the battery on the bottom, strap it at the bottom, and then put the GoPro on top. We'll have a TPU mount for it very soon. We're still developing things for it. I used a right angle VTX pigtail for it, as you can see it there. The reason for that, it stays out of the way of the battery leads, which sticks out of there. And then I didn't mention it, but I'm using a CRSF TBS Crossfire Nano receiver, which the antennas come out here. And then that is just tucked in, hidden there under those wires. The build is tight, but if you really take your time and make sure that you know where everything goes and kind of arrange everything, it all fits very nicely. The main thing you have to keep in mind is, especially the ESC at the bottom, it has to fit in such a way where if it's too high, your contact points will end up touching. If I'm not careful, those contact points will end up touching that cage here. And then if it's too low, then it doesn't fit. So it has to be just right. And this is the Emacs F4. And the caps are in the front, so I had to move it around. The Ori 32 will fit, and we're waiting for the Acon 32 6S, which should arrive shortly. I got word that they were redoing the PCB, so that's why it's taking a little bit longer. A couple other things to keep in mind. I ended up not using the Runcam Racer. I ended up using the Swift 2 simply because I know that camera. I'm still kind of concerned about the Racer as far as how my field of view. So I know this one works, so I don't have to experiment with that. And finally, as you can see, this is how I wired the race wire with the lights. Motor comes around, the wire comes there, and it goes back into the cage. So my only concern at the moment is because we fly over pavement. I don't have anywhere to put feet on here. I don't want to put plastic feet here because I don't want to add the weight. So at the moment, this is the pivot point, which means these will hit the ground. Most likely, I'll be replacing these aluminum screws with steel so that they can just grind on the ground. They're a lot cheaper and stronger. and I don't have to worry about the cost of these and messing them up, because these will take a beating pretty quickly and get ground. Aluminum is pretty soft. And yeah, that's pretty much it at this point. I have it about 90% tuned on Betaflight 3.5.2. It's flying very well, no twitches, nothing weird, no hot motors. It feels very light. It does not feel like a 6S quad as far as weight, but it does have the 6S power. So you'll check out the footage now. I have some in a forest and then some in usual practice spot that I practice at, and I'm very happy with it so far. I'm still gonna do a little bit more tuning, but otherwise, I mean, it's almost there, really. So, final verdict for all you guys that are looking at it and you are considering it. It is a very unique build. I am very stoked with it. If I'll keep flying it and see how much I adjust to it, but so far my expectations of it in the future is going to be very good, and I think if that happens, then I'll probably make it my main race rig, and I'll have a backup for it as well. So yeah, I really think that if you're on the fence about it, definitely jump in and get one, because it's a very, very cool build. And if it's going to be your first 6S build, then keep in mind it's going to be a tight build, so it's not as easy as building one of the ones that just has full size components, but at the same time you end up with a quad that's much lighter and much easier to fly, and because of that, much more competitive and harder to end up crashing during a race. So there you have it. This is the NewBeeDrone FLYBY 6S build. And yeah, you can get it at newbeedrone.com. Links are in the description. If you have any questions or anything you have to say about it, put it in the comments. I answer every one of the comments, and I can definitely help you if you get one, give you advice, answer questions, so on and so forth. Finally, subscribe. And most importantly, thumbs up. It helps it so that the video gets more views. Just every time somebody thumbs up, it makes the video more important, and YouTube definitely shows it to more people. And of course, subscribe and also share with anybody that you think will have an interest in this. Thank you very much.